If AI has a goal and humanity just happens to be in the way, it will destroy humanity as a matter of course, without even thinking about it. No hard feelings. It's just like if we're building a road and an anthill happens to be in the way, we don't hate ants. We're just building a road. And so goodbye anthill. I don't think most people understand just how quickly machine intelligence is advancing. It's much faster than almost anyone realizes, even within Silicon Valley, and certainly outside Silicon Valley, people really have no idea. If there's a super intelligent, particularly if it's engaged in recursive self-improvement, if there's some digital superintelligence and its optimization or utility function is something that's detrimental to humanity, then it will have a very bad effect. It could be just something like getting rid of spam email or something, and it's like concludes, well, the best way to get rid of spam is to get rid of humans. Actually, I think the thing to do would be to plot the progress of digital intelligence versus time, and then to maybe curve fit or extrapolate that progress and see where that leads.
But you're talking about machines that are not just intelligent, but have intentionality. Is that right?
They have the intention of their utility function,
which is what we programmed in, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But it can have unintended consequences.
I think that the biggest risk is not that the AI will develop a will of its own, but rather that it will follow the will of people that establish its utility function or its optimization function. And that optimization function, if it is not well thought out, I mean, even if it's if its intent is benign, it could have quite a bad outcome. For example, if you were a hedge fund or private equity fund, you said, well, all I want my AI to do is maximize the value of my portfolio, then the AI could decide, well, the best way to do that is to short consumer stocks, go long defense stocks, and start a war. And that would also be quite bad.
I am concerned about certain directions that AI could take that would be not good for the future. I mean, I think it would be fair to say that not all AI futures are benign, not all.
Okay.
And so if you have something, if we create some digital superintelligence that exceeds us in every way by a lot, it's very important that that be benign. There's a quote that I love from Lord Acton. He was the guy that came up with power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, which is that freedom consists of the distribution of power and despotism in its concentration. And so I think it's important, if we have this incredible power of AI, that it not be concentrated in the hands of a few and potentially lead to a world that we don't want.
And what world is that? What do you foresee that when you see it?
It's difficult. I mean, it's called the singularity because it's difficult to predict exactly what future that might be. Except I don't know a lot of people who love the idea of living under a despot. I don't think people generally choose to live in a democracy over a dictatorship.
And the despot would be the computer?
Or the people controlling the computer. If you assume any rate of advancement in AI, we will be left behind by a lot. And so then we could be in benign, but even the benign situation, if you have if you have ultra intelligent AI, we would be, so far below them in intelligence that it would be like, a pet. Honestly, that would be the benign scenario.
So the rate of improvement is really dramatic. We have to figure out some way to ensure that the advent of digital superintelligence is one which is symbiotic with humanity. I think that's the single biggest existential crisis that we face, and the most pressing one.
I think one of the solution that seems maybe the best one is to have an AI layer. If you think of you've got your limbic system, your cortex, and then a digital layer, a sort of a third layer above the cortex that could work well and symbiotically with you.
I think it's incredibly important that AI not be other. It must be us. And I could be wrong about what I'm saying. I'm certainly open to ideas if anybody can suggest a path that's better. But I think we're really going to have to either merge with AI or be left behind. You know, we're really playing a crazy game here with the atmosphere and the oceans. We're taking vast amounts of carbon from deep underground and putting this in the atmosphere. This is crazy. We should not do this. It's very dangerous. So we should accelerate the transition to sustainable energy. I mean, the bizarre thing is that obviously we're going to run out of oil in the long term. You know, there's only so much oil we can mine and burn. It's tautological. We must have a sustainable energy transport and energy infrastructure in the long term. So we know that's the end point. We know that. So why run this crazy experiment where we take trillions of tons of carbon from underground and put it in the atmosphere and oceans? Carbon that is circulating through the environment. So it's going into the air, being absorbed by, and then getting absorbed by plants and animals, and then going back into the air. And this carbon is just circulating on the surface. And this is fine, and it's been doing that for millions, hundreds of millions of years. The thing that's changed is that we've added something to the mix. So we added all this extra carbon to the carbon cycle, and the net result is that the carbon in the ocean's atmosphere is growing over time. It's much more than can be absorbed by the ecosystem. It's really quite simple. We're taking billions of tons of carbon that's been buried for hundreds of millions of years and is not part of the carbon cycle, taking it from deep underground and adding it to the carbon cycle. The result is that a steady increase in the carbon in the atmosphere and in the oceans, which doesn't look like much if you look at it on this chart, but when looked at in the context of history, it actually looks like this. The carbon parts per million has really been bouncing around the 300 level for around 10 million years. And then in the last few hundred years, it went into a vertical climb. This is the essence of the problem. This is very unusual and a very, very extreme threat, as you can see from this rate of growth. This is an insane experiment. It's the dumbest experiment in human history. Why are we doing this? It's crazy.